The Volkswagen Passat is an undeniably popular executive sedan with over 30 million units made since it was first introduced in 1972. It is now in its 8th iteration, otherwise more commonly known as the B8.5 Passat, and it has finally landed on Malaysian shores. Just one variant of the 2020 Passat facelift is available on sale this time around, and it's priced at 189,000 ringgit. Is it any good? Well, that's what you're here to find out. Like I said in the intro, if you're looking to buy a Passat, this is the only choice you get, the 2.0 TSI Elegance. Let's go straight into design, shall we? Now, from the get-go, you can tell that the changes are pretty subtle, but still noticeable nonetheless. So the dual lens projector headlights, they're still the same from before, but if you take a closer look, the design is actually a little bit more intricate, and it's got this advanced matrix IQ light system, and it's adaptive, so that's nice. And notice that the LED DRLs no longer sit at the bottom, it no longer underscores the headlights. It's instead flipped, so it sits on top here, more like an eyebrow kind of thing. So I think that's nice. And you know what's even nicer? It features sequential turn indicators. So that's actually pretty fancy. And over to the middle here, you get this larger 4-bar chrome grille design. I don't know why, but going bigger just seems like the trend these days, but I don't know, I think I may prefer the previous design slightly more. Other than that, the lower bumper is actually more sporty looking than before, featuring nice lines and these black plastic bits to give it that contrasty look. So it's a bit more refreshing to see. And this cornering light is actually LED as well. Over to the back, we finally get the full LED taillights. This is the fanciest one you get, and it even has a unique start-up sequence. And there's also sequential turn indicators. So this is definitely icing on the cake, especially coming from the ugly, not the full spec LED taillights from before. You remember the ugly ones from before? Yeah, this is much better. But moving on, you've got this Passat script over in the middle, and hidden in this big badge is the reverse camera. And speaking of hiding things, no matter how hard you look, you'll never be able to find the exhaust pipes because it's hidden here behind this ugly piece of plastic trim. No holes! No holes! Inside the cabin are more upgrades. Now, the driver gets this brand new 3-spoke leather steering wheel. It's got nice design and the buttons feel good as well. High quality and all that, as you would expect. And I know a lot of people don't seem to notice this, but the instrument cluster is actually brand new. It's got a slightly different housing altogether, and the graphics, the interface, everything is brand new, and you can do some level of customization via this screen down here. Speaking of screen, this unit is the top of the line 9.2-inch Discover Pro head unit. It is quite snappy to the touch, responsive as well, and it even has gesture control. There you go. But when I press home and then this screen pops up, I noticed that it's a little bit laggy because it doesn't have enough processing power, so feels a bit choppy, but maybe next time they can put in a faster processor. But that's my only gripe with it. Other than that, it features wireless app connect, so you can wirelessly pair your phone via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or MirrorLink. So those are nice things to have. And besides BMW, Volkswagen is the second in Malaysia to offer wireless CarPlay. So that's good. So this guy is hooked up to 8 speakers. They are not branded or anything like that, but they sound pretty decent, so that's okay. But I think you should know that the 9-speaker JBL system in the Toyota Camry sounds a lot better. So make of that what you will. Elsewhere, I like that the car comes with 3 USB Type-C ports. You've got one here, one in the center armrest, and another one at the back. So that makes it pretty modern. So make sure you have the right cables and adapters with you. Other than that, you've got 2 cubby holders, one 12V socket. But nothing much has changed here. Everything else looks the same. So I want to bring your attention to this piece of plastic right here in the center dash. They have deleted the analog clock altogether, and in its place is this backlit Passat script to remind you, just in case, what car you forget spending 190,000 ringgit on. So yeah, the deletion isn't very nice in my opinion. I kind of prefer having the analog clock there, even though most of us don't look at the analog clock to tell the time because you've got the digital clock here. That's, but you know, it's a dull look, and I just wish that they kept the analog clock. Okay, so other things I don't like is how cheap this thing sounds, and a lot of the stuff from the shoulders down, they feel a little bit cheap and hollow. And this is coming from, you know, changing the new door cards. They could have done a little bit more to make the plastics feel or sound better, but no, they chose to go with the older hard plastic, and that is a big no-no in my books, especially for a car like this. But having said that, build quality in this guy, build quality, not material selection, two different things there, is actually pretty good. You'll be hard-pressed to find any misaligned panels or bad seams or anything of that sort, because everything is very well put together. You won't find really a thread that's out of the steering wheel here, and everything is very nicely put together. I just wish they could do something about material selection, so maybe in the 9th generation Passat, because, you know. Okay, over to the back seat. As you can tell, it is super spacious. It's one of the best in the business, or this segment at least, and nothing has changed in terms of space. So you've got a good shoulder room, good headroom. I'm about 172 cm tall, you know, pretty even split torso and legs, so you can see a lot of leg room here that I can move my legs around. Pretty comfortable. You've got manual sunblinds here. The rear ones are powered, well, rear one, there's only one. And air vents, you have two down here in the back of the center console. There's none here in the B pillar. You've got a dedicated third climate control right here, but no speed selection or no blower speed selection, so that is about it. And down here in this weird little flap, yeah, is the USB Type-C as well as a 12-volt socket. I still find it weird that it flaps out like this, flips out like flap, this flap flip. Anyway, you've got a cubby holder, two here in the middle, as well as a small one that can house stuff like a Vitagen or, you know, and for those who like skiing or golfing, there is a pass-through feature that goes all the way to the front. And that's pretty much it, guys. In terms of boot space, this guy is humongous. Again, one of the best or class leading in this segment. This is 586 liters of space. You can store a few dead bodies plus some golf bags if you want. But unfortunately, they have taken out the full-sized spare tire, so it's now a space-saving unit. Other than that, what a big space this is. Previously, the Passat was available with either 1.8-litre TSI or 2-litre TSI engines, but right now it's only available in the sole 2-litre TSI tune. In terms of output, it's smack bang in the middle between the 1.8 and 2-litre TSI, and be ready, I'm going to throw a bunch of numbers at you. This facelift gets 190 PS and 320 Newton meters of torque, versus the older 1.8-litre engine. This guy is 10 PS and 70 Newton meters more powerful, but compared to the 2.0 TSI Highline from before, it's about 30 PS and 30 Newton meters less. Now that can be a little bit disappointing to some of you, but rest assured, there's still plenty of shelf to go along, especially when the engine is rung in its sweet spot, that being 2500 RPM to 4500 RPM. It's still effervescent, it's still responsive. There's a slight hint of lag as with all turbocharged engines, but this guy is pretty well tuned, I've got to say. Also keep in mind that this down tune isn't a market-specific move. It's available in other markets as well, so you know, don't be too quick to jump the gun right there. And in terms of 0 to 100, there's no official figure for this car as yet, but seeing as is the 2-litre TSI Highline from before did about 6.7 seconds to the 100, I think this guy can only be fractions of a second slower, so maybe around 7 seconds from the 0 to 100. And on paper, it's not the quickest, interestingly enough. That would be the Kia Optima GT, that's 240 over horsepower and 370 Newton meters of torque. So on paper, Optima is way up there, but this guy feels quicker. And that is because of 3 letters, guys. DSG. So the updated engine gets paired with the new 7-speed DSG that is a dual clutch automatic transmission, and it's got a wet clutch for those of you who are wondering, and it only drives the front wheel. So it's the same DQ381 gearbox as you would find in the Golf R, but here it is tuned for this front-wheel drive application. Now the gear shifts are smooth, it's very fast, it's almost seamless and imperceptible when you're cruising. And the only time I realize when it's struggling is when I'm on a steep slope where I feel like the transmission is riding on the clutch sometimes. It makes the same kind of noise when you're driving a manual and you're riding on a clutch. It's a very mechanical sound and it's inescapable. And at the same time, I also realized that when you're on a steep slope, the car tends to slip a little bit, but ever so slightly before it picks up and goes along. Interesting observations there, but I don't think it's a flaw of the gearbox. It's just how dual clutches work, I suppose. But again, if you take away those little shortcomings, the DSG really is a very performance-oriented gearbox. It's efficient too when you're cruising, and there's always enough power for you, whatever gear you are in, because of the tuning. So in terms of mechanical, powertrain and drivetrain configuration, I think they've got it nailed down on the dot. On the subject of mechanicals, this guy is mechanically simpler than the older 2-liter TSI Highline, in the sense that it doesn't come with the XDS electronic differential lock system, there is no dynamic chassis control, and there is also no selectable drive modes. So, you know, it kind of explains why this gear lever area looks a little bit kosong, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a very agile car. It's super darty for a D-segment car, almost unusually darty, and it's just a little bit on the athletic side of things. If I could simplify the driving experience for you, I would say that the Passat literally feels like a blown-up Golf. That's pretty much how I put it. In terms of steering feel, there's a little bit of feedback, and at the same time the steering wheel is very light, so you can one-hand your way around town, and it makes the car very easy to maneuver when you want to park or drive in urban areas, for example. And conversely, if you plan on doing a lot of highway driving, just take note that it has a little bit of off-center deadness, so when you're driving on the highways, it's not as twitchy, but at the same time it still feels light because there's no variable steering here. But I think if you can make do with a lighter steering and still not feel like you're driving a very twitchy car, I think that's pretty okay for a lot of people. And oh, before I forget, since we're talking about, you know, city driving and highway driving and whatnot, I've been recording my driving style over the past couple of days driving this thing, and I did a pretty much 50-50 split highway and city driving and managed to get about 7.2, 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers. So that's not too bad considering that this guy doesn't have eco mode or coasting function. It only has engine start-stop function, which I've got to say is actually pretty aggressive because it just wants to shut off anytime as it pleases. Again, there's no DCC or dynamic chassis control this time around, so no adaptive dampers or anything of the sort, but instead you get conventional, very conventional shock absorbers. And in terms of rebound characteristics and shock absorbency, I think the Toyota Camry is a little bit more finessed in those departments, but when it comes down to it, I think it's only a matter of preference, so it's not really a bad thing for the Passat. So there are a good few things that I really like about the car, like how easy it is to drive, how darty and how agile it feels. It's just a very athletic D-segment sedan, and it just cannot be said for a lot of other competitors, you know. So this guy clearly has the upper hand when it comes to driver involvement. But the one thing I simply cannot accept about this car is tire roar or road noise. When you're driving at 110 kilometers per hour, even 90 kilometers per hour, depending on the surface of the road, like, yeah, because you're at the mercy of, well, JKR, for example. I find that sometimes when I do highway driving, it gets very deafening. And it's not because of the tires' fault, because the MC5s are known to be a little bit more on the quieter spectrum of tires. Again, maybe the MC6 would have done a better job with tire insulation, but I took a quick look in the wheel well and found that there's no carpeting in the front wheels. There's only a little thin strip at the back, and that's about it for insulation. So I don't know, I think with facelift models they should have done a better job with stuff like that, but this is a very glaring problem, and for a D-segment car I think it can be a deal breaker for me.
Ich roll wenn das Herz auch bricht.
Okay, you know the drill. Let's talk safety, or rather, the lack thereof. The only thing that they have added here are stuff like the adaptive LED lighting as well as side alert, which consists of blind spot monitoring system as well as rear traffic alert. That's pretty much it. You know, no lane keeping assist or nothing of the sort, no AEB. Nope, can't find that here. Heck, the Toyota Camry costs just 7,000 ringgit more, and that guy comes with AEB with pedestrian detection. Not this guy. And the Camry even has lane keeping assist, but not this guy. Anyway, I think it's high time I hand down the verdict. So, is the Volkswagen Passat a good one? Well, I suppose it caters to executives who have grown up, matured a little bit and have families, but still want to occasionally stretch the legs a little when the roads clear up. So in that regard, I think the Volkswagen Passat does really well, and honestly, objectively speaking, I enjoy driving this car. But for those who can do with a little bit less of driver involvement and want to put more emphasis on ride comfort and refinement, then objectively speaking again, the Toyota Camry is going to be very difficult to beat. So I guess that is it for my very quick review of the 2020 Volkswagen Passat facelift. Let us know if you agree, disagree, or simply want to share an opinion down in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!